I just got through driving the biggest news in the Chevy lineup for 2024, the all-new Silverado EV. The full video is, of course, on the EV channel, linked down there in the description. But let's talk about some of the key takeaways and some of the things that might be coming to other Chevy products in the future, because Chevy is certainly not giving up on the regular gasoline Silverado yet. Probably the biggest news that you need to know is that the $40,000 Silverado EV is dead. It's just not happening. They wouldn't say exactly how much the base version would be when we finally get it, but we know it's definitely not going to be 40. My personal guess is it's going to be somewhere between $50,000 and $60,000, could possibly be around the $55,000 range. And that's of course because the Silverado EV has a really big battery pack. That's the other big news, 450 miles of range in the Silverado EV, and they're saying that even if you cut that range in half when towing, which sounds pretty reasonable depending on your trailer, they're still going to give you the most electric range in a pickup truck on sale today. What the Cybertruck and the Ram electric truck turn out to be, we don't know, but Ram is of course boasting possibly 500 miles of range because they're going to have an even bigger battery pack when the full electric Ram comes on board. The other big thing to know is that Chevy is going about the launch of the Silverado EV very differently than Ford. The first Silverado EV on sale is going to be the work truck version, and it's going to be fleet only, fleet customers only. If you're not an existing fleet customer, you can't buy one. Then sometime a little bit later this year, the RST is going to go on sale. That's the consumer version of the truck, but it's only going to be the launch edition, $105,000 starting price. If that sounds pretty hefty, then consider the fact that the work truck version starts at $77,990. I don't know too many companies out there that are really going to be jumping on this bandwagon immediately simply because of price. Clearly, they're going to have to want an electric truck in order to hop on board with the Silverado EV at the moment. Coming a little bit later, there is going to be a shorter range Silverado work truck, about 350 miles of range, but the price difference is not that much. It's going to drop down to $72,905. So not a big price drop for a reasonable drop in range. The other interesting twist is that GM didn't say anything at all at the launch event about their switch to the NACS connector, the so-called Tesla Charge connector. We all assume that features like their vehicle-to-load functionality, etc. will continue working, but we just don't know any of the details just yet. They did, however, say that the version of NACS that they will be adopting is the latest, newest version of NACS that is not actually used on any current Tesla vehicle. So that is kind of big news there. This is the charge connector that we will probably see on Tesla's own electric pickup truck, the upcoming Cybertruck. Theoretically, 1,000-volt maximum charging, still high current, so this should mean that the Silverado EVs that currently can charge at 350 kilowatts, once the new connector's on board, they'll still be able to achieve that speed, but probably only at select supercharger stations. If you connect it to one of the older V3 supercharger stations, the charging rate's probably going to be a little bit lower. Now, since a lot of folks are wondering about towing, let's just quickly roll through the towing section. Again, I'll let you refer to the complete video for everything else. Now it's time to get approximately 9,000 pounds out on the road. The first thing you're going to notice is that the range gauge has significantly dropped. Chevy says at the moment you connect a trailer, it's automatically going to cut your range figure in half. I'm actually surprised by that. It appears that GM is not doing the same sort of cloud-connected trailer profiling, etc. that we find in the Ford lineup. Chevy says they do have trailer profiles, etc., but they're not calculating the range in the same way. They're just giving you a blanket off the top 50% reduction in range. On the Ford side, you can type in the profiles of your trailer, the trailer details, you'll get an approximate range estimate, and then as you drive the trailer, theoretically that range estimate will get better and better over time. This doesn't go quite that way, but we have a lot more battery capacity, so a lot more range capability generally speaking. This battery is at 75% right now. It says we'll do about 155 miles. That seems fairly believable given the size of the battery on board. Now, let's talk about just general towing dynamics. You'll notice that because this vehicle is heavier than the average half-ton truck, it actually feels really stable, really good with 9,000 pounds on the back. And of course, it has a lot of pep. So as we're going to come up to this stop sign, let's go ahead and see what happens if we just give it the beans. Obviously, regen braking is very aggressive as well. Right now, we're in the one-pedal drive mode that works with the trailer connected, so you're going to get the most regen potential, really save your trailer brakes for later. From a standstill, the first thing you'll notice is that when you floor it, you don't get as much power as if you didn't have the trailer connected. And that's not just because of the weight in the back. That's because until we hit about 43 miles an hour, Chevy ramps the power a little bit more slowly. That helps improve trailer stability and the stability of the entire truck-trailer combo, especially on loose surfaces or wet surfaces like we're on here. If you need the extra traction to get going because something is slipping, obviously it's going to start bumping power up, but just as far as straight line acceleration goes, they are going to delay things just a little bit. The next thing you'll notice is that as you slow down, the aggressive regen really kicks in. Right now we're set to the high regen. This will take you to a stop and completely stop using primarily the regeneration on the vehicle. It is going to engage the trailer brakes for additional stability, but most of the braking is going to be done by the tow vehicle, and that's really going to help recover as much energy as possible with the trailer connected. That's a little bit different than what we see in the Lightning or in the Rivian. In the Rivian, throttle liftoff regen is all you get. There's no blended braking system. In this, if you press your foot on the brake pedal, you'll actually get more regen into the battery. In the Lightning, when you engage tow mode, it actually drops the amount of throttle liftoff regen you get down, which I always thought was weird. So when I was towing in my own Lightning, I would often just put it in sport mode to get the more aggressive regen, stuff more power back into the battery. That may have something to do with the different cooling system designs that we find in this versus the Ford truck. It could be that they were more aggressive at regenerating power, better cooling, etc. into this battery. And of course the battery is just bigger as well, so it may be more capable of handling extra power being stuffed into there. As far as the general driving dynamics with a trailer connected goes, I think this is superior to the Lightning, but the difference is not as large as GM suggested earlier in the day. I still think it has the advantage though. The suspension system is certainly more sorted. This 9,000 pounds approximately doesn't push the truck around as much, although that could have something to do with the higher curb weight that we find in this truck, and it certainly feels more sorted and more polished than the towing experience in the Rivian. Hopefully that's something that Rivian is continually working on, but the stability and traction control system in the Rivian and the air suspension give it a somewhat peculiar feel when there's this much weight on the back. Remember, the Rivian is also a slightly smaller truck. It's not that the Rivian is bad at towing, it's actually pretty good at it, it just doesn't feel quite the same as the average half-ton truck, and this certainly feels a bit more normal, a bit more typical, I guess you'd say. It almost goes without saying that the instant power and instant torque capability you get in an electric vehicle is a big advantage when towing. So we're going 40 miles an hour now. If we want to accelerate up to 50 miles an hour, it's very quick. You don't have to wait for a transmission to downshift, etc. Everything happens very rapidly. You have access to all that torque right away. Again, with the trailer connected, as long as you're going over about 43 miles an hour or so. Under that point, it's going to ramp power a little bit more slowly, again to help improve stability. But going uphill, this has an incredible amount of torque. And then, interestingly, going downhill, it has the ability to really save the brakes on your trailer. So if you live in a hilly area, as long as the battery isn't full when you start at that high altitude and go down the hill, you get a lot of additional engine braking that you just don't normally get in actually most modern pickup trucks. Since so many trucks are going to smaller displacement turbocharged engines, this actually has more ability to engine brake, for lack of a better word, than something like the average F-150. So what do you all think of the Silverado EV? Be sure and let me know down there. I am intrigued that Chevy decided to go in an entirely different direction, especially since Ram and Ford are both going in the same direction by basically creating an electric version of their existing truck line, body on frame, etc. In fact, Stellantis is really pushing into that by making a complete line of body on frame electric vehicles coming at some point in the future. They have a dedicated battery frame, and then they just bolt the same body on top. Essentially, the same thing that Ford's doing with the Lightning. That means that cost sharing is definitely an advantage. They share the same cab, the same buttons and switches and all of that on the inside for the gasoline model, helping reduce costs. Chevy, on the other hand, definitely went in a more expensive direction, and perhaps that's why the price tag is so high, especially for a work truck. The work truck version of the Silverado EV shares almost nothing with a regular work truck Silverado 1500. And interestingly enough, it doesn't actually share too many interior parts with the consumer-focused Silverado EV either. It shares stylistically, but a lot of those soft touch points become hard touch points in the work truck version. We have the vinyl floors, vinyl seats, etc. I am intrigued by the fact that the work truck does not get the really handy midgate that you will see in the RST. That will allow you to put 11-foot items from the bed all the way into the vehicle up to the backs of the front seats. The entire rear end comes out basically, sort of Chevy Avalanche style. It looks like a really, really cool and handy feature, but we aren't going to find that on the work truck version. Now, a feature like that just would not be possible if this wasn't a unibody truck. The entire structure needs to be together, it needs to be all very rigid in order for that big donut-style hole to work. And in a traditional body-on-frame truck, there's a decent amount of flex between the bed and the body, so that kind of solution just wouldn't normally work in the traditional body-on-frame world. The biggest problem, of course, with the Silverado EV is going to be pricing, and it is very, very pricey at that. We don't know what the final base truck versions are going to be, and we really don't know too much about the mainline truck pricing either. All we know is the work truck version is going to be $78,000 essentially, plus destination, so you're really talking over $80,000 all in. And I don't know too many businesses that are going to be interested in buying a work truck that's at least double the cost of their regular Silverado 1500 with somewhat uncertain future as far as the cost structure of the vehicle goes. Yes, it's going to be less expensive to fill, undoubtedly, over the long term, especially if you're in an area of the country with really cheap electricity prices, but it's going to take an awful long time to compensate for that double the MSRP price. Let me know what you think about all that. Be sure and check out the EV Buyer's Guide video on the Silverado EV, and I'll see all of you next week.